In his first year as the head coach at his alma mater. He played and coached previously at Lutcher before serving as the head coach at St. James, and he led the Wildcats to the Class 3A state championship game a year ago against Lutcher. He was then named head coach of Lutcher after the season, and he has the Bulldogs in the second round of the state playoffs against 13th seed Wossman Friday night at the Dog Yard. The Bulldogs defeated the Voyles 28-0 in the opening round last Friday night. Please give a warm, great New Orleans Sports Foundation Quarterback Club welcome to Coach Dwain Jenkins of Lutcher High School. Dwain.
Thank y'all for having me back. Ken's gotten a lot like the fan bases that I've coached in the last couple of years, where he expects you to keep winning and expects you to be around in the second round of the playoffs so he can put you off and for speaking. Those are the expectations that I'll live with and deal with and have my entire coaching career. Last time I was here was last year, the Tuesday before the state championship game. And my world has changed drastically since that last point that I was here, including the beatdown that I took on that Saturday afternoon in the Superdome. We were an overachieving team last year at St. James. It was well documented. We had an All-American quarterback who went down in the spring. And he was out for the season, and we were able to manage and pull that team together and make a run to the state championship game with Mr. Narcisse making his comeback in the playoffs. Unfortunately for him, he tore the other ACL this year and missed his senior year at St. James as well. But 2 weeks after the state championship game, my wife and I had our third child, had a daughter. 2 weeks after that, Tim DeTillier retired from Lutcher High School after spending 25 years as the head coach. And a month later, I was named his successor to take his place and was transferred from St. James High School to Lutcher High School, two of the biggest rivals in the state of Louisiana, who had spent 11 years not playing each other, and last year was the first time that we had played, and played twice last year. So to move from one side of the river to the other side of the river, to move from one school, when you took over, it was 0-20, and hadn't won a game in 2 years. And then take over at a school that's just won a state championship. My 2 stints as head coach, I've had 2 totally different programs to take over, and have learned a lot in that time. I spent, to get to this point, spent 4 years at Lutcher as an assistant coach under Tim DeTillier. I was a receivers coach my first 4 years, fortunate enough to win a state championship in 2003. Got to coach Gerard Landry, who went on and started at Southern. Then I spent the next 7 years as the offensive coordinator at Lutcher High School under Coach DeTillier. We won 2 state championships, one in 2006 and one in 2008. Was fortunate enough to coach some guys who had won the Great New Orleans Quarterback Club Player of the Year. Gavin Webster won it after the end of his senior year. So I was very fortunate there. The guys who kind of got the headlines off of that team is Jarvis Landry, and I'll talk a little bit about him a little bit later. That went on and started at LSU, now playing in the NFL. Spent 7 years as the offensive coordinator there, and then went to St. James. Took over a program, has a great tradition, very proud, but had fallen in hard times. My first year at St. James, we made it to the quarterfinals, and it had been 4 years since they had won a playoff game prior to that, and had gone 2 straight years of losing every football game. 2 trips to the quarterfinals, and then last year, my 3rd year there, we were the state runner-up, losing the state championship game. It gets us to this year. Taking over a program which everybody expects to be competing for a state championship. Everybody expects to be playing Thanksgiving week. Everybody expects us to be there and competing for a chance to go to the Superdome. And dealing with those expectations is something that our football teams had to embrace. We lost a lot of great players off of last year's team, especially on the defensive side of the ball. One of them being Sully Lesh, who's starring at Nicholls State right now, probably going to be named freshman All-American. And we've kind of managed those expectations and went through a schedule that was pretty difficult. Our 2 losses we're 9-2 now. Our 2 losses in the regular season was a 2-point loss to Sanama, who's still in the playoffs, and then a Week 10 loss to De La Salle. And De La Salle is probably one of the most talented football teams in the state of Louisiana. And we credit to De La Salle. They took it to us. We had some opportunities to get into the game. We didn't take advantage of it, and they're a good football team, and we played. We didn't play very well, but they had a lot to do with it. So a lot of credit to Coach Manali and his group at De La Salle, because we get that playoff run underway this Friday. We do have a couple of playoff games. We had one behind us last week, 28-0. Maybe not the big scores that everybody anticipated seeing in the first round. That's kind of everybody's come accustomed to with the new playoffs. You see a lot of big scores in that first round. We played a team that's very unconventional in the first round of the playoffs. We had 5 possessions in the entire football game. They had a 21-play drive that they didn't score on, a 17-play drive that they didn't score on, and a 16-play drive that they didn't score on. We scored to go up 14-0 with 9 minutes and 43 seconds left to go in the second quarter. We didn't see the ball again until 4 seconds left in the half. So they ran off a lot of clock. That was their game plan. They had 4 300-pound offensive linemen, a 270-pound tight end, ran the ball up the middle, waited for the play clock to get down to the 3 seconds, and did it again. And did it again, and did it again, and did it again, until the clock was going. They ran out of time trying to score before the half. They called all their timeouts. They spiked the ball on 4th down, trying to stop the clock. It was the strangest game to prepare for and to coach in, because you just knew that your possessions were going to be limited. So we did score first 2 possessions and scored our first possession in the second half. Went up 21-0. Our last score came on an 85-yard fumble return. So it was just a real fast game. We actually got to spend. After the game was over, everybody else was still just starting the 3rd quarter or 4th quarter. So we were in the field house following games on Twitter, following games on the scoreboard on Sports Nola, trying to see who our next opponent would be and see how the bracket would shake out. This week we played Wossman. Wossman's from Monroe, very talented football team. 2nd year in a row that Lutcher and Wossman are going to hook up in the 2nd round of the playoffs. Last year Wossman was led by Cameron Lewis, who's currently on the LSU roster. This year, they're a very strong defensive team, led by Charles Ellis, who's a returning All-State football player at linebacker, and Dalvin Hutchinson, who's going to become a big name in the state of Louisiana here in the next 2 years. He'll be an SEC-level recruit. He's a defensive tackle in the class of 2019. He's 6'2", 305 pounds, and he's going to be one of the better players in the state over the next 2 years. Our top prospects on our football team this year, we have Jontre Kirkland, who was last year's Quarterback Club Player of the Year. He's committed to LSU. He plays quarterback for us. He missed 2 games in the middle of the season, and he still managed to score 35 touchdowns so far this season. 20 passing, 15 rushing, and he's having a real good follow-up to a year that saw himself win MVP in a state championship game. He's currently committed to LSU. They project him to be a defensive back on that level. The other guy that's getting a lot of attention recruiting is Dontre Davis. He's one of the top receivers in the state. He's currently contemplating a decision between Texas A&M, Mississippi State, and TCU. Seem to be the top 3. And now, behind local guy David Johnson, is now Memphis is starting to make a push in there with these other big boys at Memphis. If it wasn't for Jarvis Landry being an alum of Lutcher High School, Dontre Davis would probably be the most decorated receiver in the history of our school. But we've had one that's been pretty good. Jarvis is still in the NFL. He's getting ready to sign his like he called it, his big boy contract at the end of this season. He was a 3rd round draft pick with the Miami Dolphins, and has put together a great career. He was the fastest receiver to 200 receptions in the history of the NFL after his first 2 years. And this past Sunday was a pretty special day for Lutcher High School. Jarvis Landry, alum, plays for Miami Dolphins, squared off against Dexter McCoy, who's a member of the San Diego Chargers, and they were teammates on the 2008 state championship team. So a little small town like Lutcher, small school, doesn't have a lot of people. St. James Parish, 20,000 people in the whole parish. We have 11,000 people that live on the East Bank. To have 2 guys that square off in the NFL game, playing at the same time, who were teammates in high school, is pretty special. And both of those guys have done a great job representing our school and our community. Dexter took an unconventional route. He's a great story, great job of perseverance for people to look at. He was a guy who wasn't drafted. He came out of Tulsa, didn't have anybody, didn't even make a practice squad. Went and played in the Arena Football League for a year. Then he went to Canada, went to the Canadian League, played for the Edmonton Eskimos. Won Defensive Rookie of the Year his first year in Canada. 2nd year they won the Grey Cup, and got signed by San Diego this year in the offseason. And just pretty proud of the things that he's been able to accomplish. I guess at this time I probably talked long enough, so I answer any questions that anybody might have.
Raise your hand if you have a question.
Ed?
I have a question, Coach. What you played De La Salle? What do you think their chances are in their? It's Division II, I believe.
Division II. I think De La Salle probably is the most talented team in that division, and they may be the best team. The one thing that always becomes a question when you get deep into the playoffs is experience, and that's the one thing that you can't make it. It's you either have it or you don't, and the task that Coach Manali and his coaching staff is going to have is overcoming that experience deficit they have when they play a team like Parkview or St. Thomas More, who's very polished and been in those big games, in those pressure situations. And I think De La Salle is extremely talented. They took it to us. They played, I guess they would say, 2 big games, and they really handled those tasks quite well, going on the road at St. James and then coming to Lutcher and winning that game as well, as handily as they did. So they're a very good football team. They're going to get either one of those. They'll get them in New Orleans, whether it's their game or in the Dome against either one of those football teams. But that would be the one, I guess, reservation you would have about De La Salle, is just how will they handle that experience.
Final question, who would you say is the team to beat in your class in 3A?
West Feliciana. They're 11-0. They have handled every task that they've been thrown their way. They're a team that's been to, I think, 3 straight semifinals. They're on my side of the bracket, so hopefully we can do our part and have to make that trip up to St. Francisville here in a couple of weeks and give them that and get that rematch of the semifinals from last year. I would say that A-Meat's definitely one of the other teams that was a semifinalist last year. That's in that elite class. Obviously, the defending state champs will probably get mentioned in that subject. My kids have worked really hard. We played well at times. We still don't think we played our best football. And then I think you have a couple of teams out in the West that probably don't get a lot of mention or respect. But Iowa has put together a really good, solid season. And Jennings, it might be the wild card there because of their running back, Travis Etienne. Travis is a big-time running back. He was the MVP of the state last year in 3A. Rushed for over 3,000 yards.
Just one quick question. What do you think of Coach Ogeron?
I think Coach Ogeron is he is such a personable person. I've known him for quite a while. I got to meet him when he was on the road recruiting for USC. Got to meet him when he was at Ole Miss recruiting one of our big-time players that we had back in the 06, 07, 08 when he was recruiting Rolando Melanson. And he's a relentless recruiter. And I can remember when he was recruiting Jarvis Landry when he was at USC, and he wanted to fly airplanes down 3125 and land them so he can get to recruiting. The thing about Coach Ogeron, he's such a personable person, and you understand why kids want to play hard for him. I think that he's been in 2 interim roles, and those things are practically impossible. You rarely see people have any success with it. I think the job that he's done, you can see players, they want to play for him, and it'll be interesting to see how these last 2 weeks of the season kind of shake out and kind of see where LSU goes from there. I know that he's done a good job keeping those relationships with those guys that they had committed. The Florida game that's played this week when that game was canceled, he personally went out on the road and went recruiting and went to see some of those kids that were committed to just visit to make sure that they all knew that LSU was still important to them.
Thank you, Coach. I gather you wouldn't have any problem recommending some of your elite players to play for Coach. Huh?
No, we have one committed right now with John Trey Kirkland. I have one that I coached for the last 3 years committed right now as well with Lowell Narcisse. And we've kind of had those guys there. So I want to thank y'all, and I want to thank Ed for putting up something last week on the Friday Night Football. My son is a big-time die-hard football fan. He's 9 years old. He loves Friday Night Football. He loves high school football. And he did a little drawing, and I sent it to Ed, and Ed put it on the TV last week. And to see his reaction when he got to see his picture on Friday Night Football was priceless. So thanks a lot, Ed.
Tell him he gets a little older, we'll fire JT. He's gone. Exactly. Come in. That's it.
Thanks a lot.
You can make that call.
I can make that call. Thank you.
Thank you, Dwayne.